What's up, everybody? So, yeah, gonna talk about board and batten. See if I can fix this weird wire thing in my headset. Yeah, this morning we had a tornado warning, tornado watch. It's pretty fun. I got up early this morning. I was up at like 6 or something, and all of a sudden there's this thing on my phone. It's like, brrr, makes this weird noise, and I look at my phone, and it's like, tornado warning this area until 6:45 a.m. And then another one that said, severe thunderstorm up to 80 miles per hour, destructive winds. The forecast is always way worse than it actually is around here. We always get really dire warnings, and then nothing happens. Like earlier this week, the forecast said it was going to rain all week, and it rained like once. So, anyways, yeah, of course there was no tornado. I mean, there was actually a tornado at the time, half an hour south of us, but it was going in the other direction. So, yeah. Anyways, the only thing the destructive winds that I got ended up destroying was the tarp that I had tied up using it as an awning to cover all my tools while I'm building my workshop. And I'm having bad luck with covering my tools in general. So the universe wants them to get rained on. And it was a $95 tarp that I bought at Walmart. It was like the heavy duty one. But you know what that means? The plastic is thicker, but the grommets are still the same crappy grommets with almost no reinforcement that they have on their cheapest tarps. So it really wasn't heavy duty at all in terms of that. And all the grommets just ripped out and whatever. So now I realize I gotta get in touch with my buddy Jeff Bezos and order one of his high quality, the White Duck brand waterproof canvas tarps. It's like $250 for one of the size I need, but it's got super reinforced grommets with vinyl straps, so you don't even have to use the grommets if you don't want to. And that's going to be able to stand up to those destructive 80-mile-an-hour winds or whatever. The other annoying thing was that the rain was going sideways. And I know everyone says, like, oh, the rain goes sideways. What they really mean is the rain's going diagonally. When I looked out the window, the rain was going horizontally. Like, it was straight this way. I just saw torrential rain going this way, and that was really bizarre. And there's also just rain. There's just water pouring in under my door and on the sides of my window just because, rain's not meant to go that direction, and when it does weird things. So it was just a river pouring. It was crazy. Anyways, so that was fun, and then it cleared up after that, and now everyone doesn't have power. I was at the gas station, and there's all these people gathered around talking about the storm, like, all of Ozark's Acre, there's no power over there, and but the church has power somehow. And anyways, so that was that tornado warning. So with all this wind going around, gets me thinking about something called board and batten siding, which when people are talking about building rustic wood cabins, one of the most popular siding choices is something called board and batten. And you might be asking, well, what is board and batten? Well, board and batten siding is when you have the side of your house, you have your framing, and on the outside of the framing, you nail a whole bunch of 1x8 or 1x10 boards, pine or oak boards, and it's usually rough cut lumber. It doesn't have to be, but usually to do it cheaply is green rough cut lumber. So you cover the whole side of the house with your 1x8 or your 1x10 oak or pine boards that are green, and there's going to be gaps between them, and they're going to shrink, leaving even bigger gaps. So what do you do? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to put the battens on. This is the batten part of the board and batten, which are your 1x2 inch or 1x3 inch or whatever thinner boards that you nail on over the gaps that cover the little gaps between the pieces of wood, and then some. Right? Nice, easy. You can mill it yourself and you nail it right on. Now, I suggest that the typical board and batten approach should be modernized a little bit to get it to not cause mold problems, right? And so what I'm going to tell you might be a little bit counterintuitive, but bear with me. So you're looking straight down. I was going to make some diagrams for this video, but most of y'all probably have 100 plus IQs, and you can conceptualize what I'm saying, envision it in your head. So you're looking down at the wall from the top. You're not looking at the side. You're not looking from the inside or the outside. You're looking straight down at the top, like you're seeing a surgical cross section of the wall. So on the outside, you have your board and batten, And then you have the framing with insulation in between it, which, because you're going to insulate your cabin because you're not stupid. And then on the inside, you have the interior sheathing, whether that's shiplap pine boards or sanded plywood or drywall or whatever you want to use in there. So what can now, nothing that I'm saying applies to if you're using closed cell spray foam insulation, because that's totally seals it off, and what I'm saying does not apply at all, so ignore this video completely if you plan on using closed cell spray foam, which I don't recommend using for a variety of reasons. So you're going to be, in this case, you're going to be using either fiberglass or rock wool or wool, or maybe even foam board insulation. So anyways, you're looking down at your wall, you're seeing this, there's 80 miles per hour winds, and what's happening? Well, the wind is blowing into the gaps between your board and batten, because there's always going to be little gaps when it shrinks. There's always going to be ways for air to get in. There's winds going in there, and even if there's not even any, let's say the winds is 0 miles per hour, right? You still have a situation where, say it's summer and you have AC on inside, or even if you don't have AC, it's still going to be a bit cooler inside the house because it's insulated. And the outside it's super hot and humid, but let's use the AC as an example. It's really cold inside the house, outside it's hot and humid. Hot and humid air is going to be finding its way in the gaps between the boards and the battens, just because the batten up against the board, it's never going to seal perfectly well. There's always going to be air traveling in there, and the warm air outside has lots of water particles in it because it's humid. And it's going in, and it's going to be finding a way around your insulation, because your insulation is not closed cell foam. It's not going to be sealed perfectly, and it's going to find little spots where it can collect against your interior cold wall surface, because your drywall or your pine boards are going to be cold, right? And it's going to condense, right? Because condensation happens when you have warm, moist air on one side and cold air on the other side. And it's gonna the moisture is gonna condense against that surface, and it's gonna start to mildew or mold. So those of you who are like, well, all these modern houses, the problem is they seal it all off, and when you seal it all off with your house wrap and your caulk and everything, you know what? The water can get in, but the water can't get out, and that's what causes mold problems. Well, let me tell you something. I'm going a little bit too slow here. The guy behind me is like, what? Anyways, let me tell you something that's just gonna like bust your boiler here. When you have a situation that I just described where you didn't really seal anything off, the water gets in, and the water has a way to get out, but it does not want to get out. You've created a situation where it doesn't matter whether you seal, the water doesn't want to leave, because you know what? It wants to condense against the cold surface. Now, reverse, now we're in winter, right? The inside of the house is heated, the outside is cold and dry. And so again, the cold air is going to find its way in the gaps between the board and batten, around your insulation, find little spots that it can go up against the wall surface, and it's going to make the wall surface cold, right? You're going to have like cold traveling to the wall, and then the warm moisture is going to condense up against the inside, and so you're going to get mold on the inside, right? Which is even worse. That's why, yeah, I've seen it before on drywall. I've seen just like mildew forming on drywall in the winter, and the reason is because the drywall in that area is cold, because there's some external leak, right? Anyway, so my solution to this is, and by the way, about insulation types, before I go into my solution, not my solution, just the correct building science solution. If you have fiberglass insulation, it's very susceptible to mildew. So you get moisture in there, it's going to start falling apart. Rock wool is very resistant to that. So with the rock wool, you're still going to have problems with the moisture, but it's not going to affect the rock wool so much. It's just going to affect your building materials. But at least the rock wool insulation is not going to harbor mold and help it spread and stuff. And foam board, well, mildew can easily grow on foam board, so that's just kind of there. All right, so now look down at your surgical cross-section of the wall again, right? You have your board and your batten. Now, some of you might have already thought, oh, well, I'm going to just put wood glue, like liquid nails. I'm going to put that down the seams of the battens. So the batten will be wood glued up against the board. Well, that's a great improvement, but it's never going to be perfectly great. It's exterior. The wood's going to shrink and the glue's going to crack. And you can't just keep caulking forever. It's just crazy. So and I think you should do that. You should certainly put liquid nails down every batten. But that's not going to solve this problem. It's part of the solution, but the main solution is, right? So you have your board and batten. The next layer is the house wrap, which, by the way, house wrap is not impermeable. It doesn't let moisture in and then not let moisture out, right? What it does is it stops actual vapor from coming in. So the only way moisture can get in now is via diffusion through the teeny tiny pores on the vapor barrier, and that's what you want. You don't want air freely traveling in, which is what happens when there's a draft or leak. That's the worst thing you can have. You want to control it so vapor, like water with particles hanging out in the air, suspended in the air, can't just freely travel in. You want it to have to force its way through the vapor barrier, so that way it greatly reduces the amount of moisture that can come in. That's what you want. So that's what you do. And so you have the board and batten with the liquid nails. You have your vapor barrier that's properly taped and everything. And then you have OSB or plywood. And you might be thinking, well, why haven't you got, I want to, okay, if you want to make it yourself, you don't want to buy anything from Home Depot, rather than OSB or plywood, then you just have another layer of board without batten, right? Which may seem silly to have 2 layers of wood, but it's going to make your house stronger. It's going to insulate even more, but the main thing is it's going to be a solid surface that the house wrap can go up against, because if you don't have that there, you just have the house wrap stretched across your studs or your posts and beams. Anytime the wind gets in between the board and battens, when there's like 80-mile-an-hour wind, it's just going to buff it around the house wrap and eventually just cause it to rip and fail, and then vapor can just freely travel in. So you want to have your exterior siding, which is the board and batten, your vapor barrier, your exterior sheathing, which is going to be either plywood, OSB, or just 1x10 boards or whatever, so that the vapor barrier can't just move around in the wind and rip. And then now you have your insulation, your interior vapor barrier, so that you don't breathe in fiberglass, and then your interior siding. And then you're going to have, it's like, you still have your rustic wood cabin materials. You still have the ability to mill all that material yourself if you want to. You do have to use some modern stuff again, we're not sealing it against moisture, we're sealing it against vapor. So that prevents most moisture from coming in, condensing against the interior wall surface, or it prevents cold, dry air from coming right in and causing your warm air on the inside condensing against the interior wall surface. And you have a lot fewer problems. And one last final note before I end this video. I am a huge fan, by the way, of not making holes in your interior wall sheathing. And that means having the steampunk look of having all your electric stuff, your plugs and switches and stuff in galvanized conduit along the wall, which is kind of like the public school look. Or having it in the white PVC conduit, the square stuff, which looks nice, you can't really see it. And also having your plumbing outside the wall, but then you can make soffits for the plumbing, so you don't see it, because you might not want the steampunk look everywhere. You might not want to see the plumbing, but I don't think you should be cutting holes in your interior walls and putting plumbing and electric through it. And the main reason is because nobody does it correctly. Nobody tapes it off and seals it, so you basically are making big holes in your interior vapor barrier that causes vapor from the warm inside of your house in the winter to just travel right into your wall cavity and condense. And that's why a lot of problems happen with these quote-unquote houses that are totally sealed off so moisture can get in and it can't get out. It's not so much that it's sealed off, it's that it's not sealed off. It's that people try to seal it with vapor barrier, but then they just cut holes in the vapor barrier for all the plug outlets and stuff. The electrical contractor doesn't understand any of this crap, so he just cuts it and doesn't even bother even trying to tape it or anything. The same with the plumber. And then the homeowner later on is doing modifications and changing things, and they're drilling holes in the wall and not even realizing what they're doing. And all you're doing is making it so that huge amounts of vapor can just travel freely into your wall cavity and condense against the exterior wall. So that's what you want to avoid. So have a sealed wall cavity, but it's not really sealed, as I explained. And I think it's a great thing to have your electricity and your plumbing not in your wall cavity if you can figure out a way to do that and still have it be aesthetically pleasing to you. So that's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm driving over this beautiful lake right now in northern Arkansas. Really amazing. I hope to go kayaking on it someday, or boating in some way or another. Check out returntoland.org, subscribe to my Telegram channel and all that cool stuff.